He got hit with so many typicallys and uniques.
Well, that's unique. We don't really see that very much.
Yeah, typical or unique. Aiden was unique today, or there was
Right.
something typical today.
Oh, yes, that is very typical. We see it all the time.
Oh, don't worry about it. That's typical.
Oh, every child is unique, so we can't say what is typical.
That's typical. See you later.
We call it the typical unique conversation. Welcome back to Typically Unique. I'm Kim Aponte, and I'm here with my husband, Carlos.
Hello. And today's going to be a real talk. We don't have anything scripted or anything. We're going to jump right into something that kind of happened today.
Yep.
And just want to talk about it. So we had a marriage counseling session this afternoon.
Yes, we did.
With our relatively new marriage counselor, the one that kind of maintained us for many years, who we haven't got into yet. We talked in the last episode about our first counselor, who was right between the eyes and told us what to do and don't deviate from the plan, and real straightforward. And we were kind of looking for some kids' gloves after that, and went to somebody who really kind of helped us in our marriage, gave us some tools. And
For a long time.
For a very
we
long
had
time.
the same person for a long time.
Yep. And then COVID kind of hit. We did a few little sessions, around that. But and then after a while,
She eventually closed her practice, and I cried.
How
I was
dare
like,
she?
No.
So it left us without, any maintenance for our marriage counseling for a couple years, I would say. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny how we got to today, because we actually reached out to somebody. We've talked about those pamphlets, right, that you get at work, and you get a couple free sessions based on, some new things that are coming up in your life that are maybe causing you stress. You want to talk to somebody. Kim pulled that out because we were having what? I'll let you describe it.
Well, we had that one episode where we were sharing where Aiden is now and like my feelings about that, and I actually got quite emotional at that point about having my own wishes and dreams of what I thought, and I'm dealing with that today, and it really consumes my mind sometimes and my feelings, and so I wanted help with that. I just wanted someone to talk me through it and kind of, make sense of the reality and just how to balance all of that, and how to come to terms, I guess,
right, with
the situation and ultimately feel okay.
And so that was the reason for reaching out.
That's what we reached out for.
Yes. So how did we get here, right? So that's what we reached out for. And I think at the time, Kim wanted to have that initial discussion, but I have my own feelings and emotions around everything that's going on with Aiden, and I think I hide it better. I don't express it as much, and I thought this was an opportunity for maybe me to get in touch with some of that. So she shared some of her screen time with this counselor, with me, so we could talk through it, because, sometimes when we have conversations with Aiden, we're careful, right? We want to express how we feel. We want to have genuine conversations, but we're careful, in how we go about that. We don't want to hurt the relationship any. We want to make it better. We want to be better parents. We want to be empathetic. We don't necessarily agree with everything, but we love our son. And if this is the life that they choose, we want to experience that and hear that, and we want to do a better job in that. So that's what I think probably the second session kind of expressed.
So we always want to point things out about the mental health care system. So when we use that service where you can get, a few free sessions, you just have to generally describe the issue. and that's only so that they can match you with a therapist who is maybe specialized in that area. So that's what they did. So we were matched with this current counselor based on wanting to talk about our relationship with our child, right?
Stated perfectly,
Okay.
Kimberly. Stated
Okay.
perfectly. So that's what we went into. So probably by the third session, which we were both involved in, the counselor kind of noticed that the wolf closest to the fire was our communication, right? Yeah, and this is a broad term, and I'm not speaking for our counselor, but I think there was some realization we have to kind of get things right. We need to be on the same page. We need to make sure we're a united front in what we think the future should be and all this stuff. So she started diving into a little bit about where Kim and I are. And again, we haven't had any maintenance, for
Right.
a couple years. And some things that I think we were keeping bottled up because, there's a change in our life. We're empty nesters, we're still concerned about our son. We're concerned about our daughter. Kim had a big change in her work. I had a big change coming up in my work. So there was a lot of things going on that we probably needed to sift through before we could really dive into the details of how we should better interact and have control of our emotions and feelings when speaking with Aiden. Is that a fair characterization that brought us?
I think so.
Okay. So the past couple sessions with our new counselor, who admittedly is not a marriage counselor. So let's get that on the table. And she has stated that. She's like, look, this is not what I do. What we initially talked about is what I do. I can put you in touch with somebody else. And they can work on you with this, the marriage counseling, to give our maintenance, get a little tune-up. And I will continue to work with you on the relationship with your son. But I think you need both of these right now because one's intertwined with the other. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay. So the last 2 or 3 sessions have been very animated.
Well, our response to that, we really like her.
Yes, we do.
I really like her personality.
Yes.
No matter if it's the medical field or the mental health field, I am looking for someone who is reachable, approachable. I get a gut instinct on how I connect with them, like their honesty and just their character. Like, I just get a good read on that. And I really like her. So I didn't want to we said, no, we don't want to go to someone else. And she was willing to counsel us on the marriage portion too.
Because she had a little bit of a background, right?
Yeah.
We would have to start over with a marriage counselor. So she had some of our background.
Yes.
She's actually been slightly interested in our podcast, to maybe get some background. I don't know if she's watched a lot, but I think she's watched it.
No, but just to get some background about us, because when you switch any doctors and then you have to start all over again from the beginning to give all your background. And if you've watched all of our shows, we have a lengthy history that we need to retell every single time. And so just sending maybe a clip, here, if you watch this episode, you'll kind of understand this portion of our life. So it is like that kind of a thing.
Yeah, not the whole series, but some dynamics, mostly I think initially about Aiden, kind of the introduction.
Yep.
And so those sort of things. So we had a session today. We're fresh off that session, probably from an hour ago. And it got very lively, and it really drilled into some things that I think we wanted to real talk about. So, again, the backdrop of this is we want to get to the point where we feel good enough to come together, to have conversations with Aiden, have a united front, be more accepting, more loving and empathetic and all those things that sometimes are a struggle for us. But I think our counselor noticed that we were having some of those struggles with each other in how we communicate, how we take certain things, how we perceive things, how we actually feel, the real life feelings about how we interact with each other. And today, our counselor and I almost ganged up on Kimberly to the point that
there were tears involved.
Yeah, and triggers involved.
Yeah.
And so I want to dive into that a little bit because I think I saw it one way, you saw it a different way, and I'm sure our counselor saw it a third way. And this is kind of the microcosm of what has gone on in our relationship. And awareness is the first step into healing, right?
Yeah.
And so over the past few weeks, our therapist has been saying, look, our counselor has been saying, you have some deep-seated issues that may come from childhood.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't disagree with that. We know what we bring. Again, awareness is a lot of this, and we'll say that sometimes in some conversations,
And can I clarify something
Please.
about that? Because I think parents hear that and take that so negatively. Like, I didn't give you childhood issues. It's not really that. It's just whatever you experienced in childhood. It doesn't mean it was abuse or
Right.
neglect.
Right.
It's just however you internalized your experience stays with you.
So because we're real talking, right?
Yeah.
Let's give a couple good examples. I'll give one of mine, and you think of one of yours as I give mine, because
Okay.
we don't like to put each other on the spot here, but you made me think of something, and maybe if you hear mine, you could think of a related story.
Yeah.
So exactly to what Kim said. Kim said, it doesn't have to be trauma. I didn't experience trauma as a kid. I wasn't beat insensibly. Did I take a couple spankings? A couple, but I was pretty much a good kid.
We grew up in that era.
Yeah,
so.
but this was no big thing, I ran out in the middle of the road. Should I take a spanking? Maybe I should, because the car would have hurt a lot more than the spanking, right?
That's
But so I get that. What my childhood issue has maybe not a lot to do with my parents. It's how I grew up, and I am a middle child. And we all know the stigma that goes along with that. My older sister was the experiment, the guinea pig, right? And she had it tougher than me because our parents were learning how to parent. And she was like 3-4 years older than me. I have a younger brother who's 5 or 6 years younger than me. So he was spoiled. I mean, just everything was Jason doing and and this and that and the whole thing, right? I, as the middle child, was not spoiled and not overly parented. So I had to kind of fend for myself. I didn't have a lot of communication with my parents, either as being spoiled or I was being bad and, having a conversation with. So for me, I internalized a lot of things. I never talked through stuff. I observed, I listened, but I didn't have the communication skills to talk through things. So what does that do to me as an adult? A couple things. I'm a little social. I have some social anxieties because everybody wants to have a conversation when you're in social situations. Well, that's, I wasn't a talker. I wasn't like my brother, just chatting the whole time, because he was the comedian, So I'm somewhat awkward, or feel awkward. I guess I'm not awkward because I'm a salesman, so I have to speak, but I feel a certain anxiety, even though I can power through it. In our relationship, when things are going, kind of the wrong way, or I'm feeling a little slighted or something like that, I don't talk through it. I just cross my arms and sit in the corner and maybe do a little pouting and I'm just quiet. I don't speak. So it's not bred from childhood trauma. It is just that's how I grew up.
Yep.
So that comes along with me. And she wants to dive into that a little bit. Do you have something similar that is maybe not tied to childhood trauma that...
Yeah, I think I come from a family that was very scheduled. And it was a good thing. I mean, the house was very clean and spotless, and we did lots of activities, but there was a routine and a schedule. My sister and I were very well behaved, because we knew like what the rules were and what you do. But then how like that affected me is like I just like to be carefree. Like I went the whole other route, You never know, and you don't know which way you could have followed that same exact path, or I'm like, nope, not for me. So I just, I always say like I'm the last minute queen, and yeah, just do the laundry when you don't have any more clean socks.
That is 100%
that
true.
That kind of way, I guess.
Yep.
Just more free-spirited and flexible and,
And usually it's do the laundry when we don't have any more towels.
Right.
Towels are the indicator, right, for our laundry. Are we out of towels?
We're out of towels.
Do some laundry.
Do laundry.
But that's a great example because I think mine was that's how I acted, so that's what I know, so I continue to do that. And you might have coveted the opposite, being less regimented as a child. So you coveted the opposite as an adult. So I'm going to do the opposite of what I experienced. And again, not born from trauma, but just condition, right? Or environment.
I think it has a lot to do with why, like, I've always been so independent and want to do things my way. And there's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot from that.
So I guess what our counselor now is trying to have us understand is, what is born from childhood conditioning? What could be born from potential childhood trauma, that maybe we felt a certain way, even though it wasn't physical or, abusive or, anything like that. So that's part of it. But the big piece of that is taking that awareness and applying it to how you and I communicate. So I can be empathetic to her childhood conditioning, and she could be empathetic towards mine.
Well, because the odds are you're probably going to marry somebody or partner with someone who is going to be exactly the person who are going to trigger those issues that you deal with, whether you know about them or not. They're going to come out because of the personality that you're probably drawn to, because either, when she said it today, they're either exactly like what you grew up with, or they're or like you're either drawn to what you grew up with or you're drawn to the opposite of what you grew up with. But either way, that issue is there.
And there could be, and even though I don't know the true definition of this, but there could be some codependency with that also needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
But which is interesting, so when we say we're maybe drawn to the opposite, so one of the things we talked about in counseling today is, I, again, am not a social butterfly. I do not stay up late. I'm a morning person. Kim is a night owl. She wants to...
Got me through college.
She wants to go out and have fun and stay late. And I'm like, what's the early bird special? And can we be in bed by 9? So that's something that we're working through because I want to fulfill her love bucket, and that's something that she enjoys, quality time, fun time, laughing hysterically together late into the night, and so I understand that. And that's something that we kind of talked about today. But it goes to show that maybe we do kind of match with somebody that tests our own personal limits because we certainly can't change the other person, but me, I can recognize what her love language is and make those gestures to her and vice versa.
Yeah.
So
And that I think the love languages is like a
It is.
a different thing, but it's, I don't know if you want to call it issue or
no, I mean, but this is something that makes you happy, and love language is in that category, right?
Yeah.
The way I can show love to you, it makes you happy, makes you appreciate us. I recognize that, I need to understand that, and I need to try to do the things, to show you love in the way that you receive it.
Yes, and she talked to us today about learning how to recognize those moments coming up when one of us is being triggered with one of those issues and being empathetic to it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Instead of it causing a great argument.
You're doing a great segue here.
Yes,
Keep going.
So to segue into that, go ahead.
Keep going. Yeah. So we had. So first, let me set up just briefly. Again, our counselor is not trained as a marriage counselor, but has done a lot of homework, especially what we show her that, hey, I need to look at this and I need to understand this better. So she came to this session with an idea of how...
Oh, she had a plan.
She had a plan for today's session.
Yep.
And part of that was, I want to see how you guys are in that moment that we're triggered, right?
And we delivered.
And we delivered.
If you... Oh my
I
gosh,
felt so
if you
bad
could
for
have
her.
even seen
Her
Yes,
face
but
was like...
she got to live the moment in real time of what happens.
when we get into it, yeah.
And it's not anything big. Like, it is the smallest thing, but it could be the way something is said, the tone of a voice, a topic. It's just something like that. And what we learned from her was that it sets off some feeling that one of us could have that we've dealt with since we were little, or has built from since we were little. And so you have to start to learn what it is. And so that's what she was trying to help us do. Like, let me see it so we could figure out what it is. So then the goal is, when it happens the next time, you come to the other person with, oh, wow, I see that you're starting to feel like this, right?
With more, and she wanted to, so her plan was to stop us. Good luck. She wanted to stop us in the moment that we're both triggered and say, okay, let's talk about that emotion. And I was like, all right.
No, I was crying. I was mad. I was like, oh my God. Oh, it was so bad.
So this is such a benign example. I hope you're okay with kind of sharing what we talked about in kind of a roundabout way. I mean, we don't have to get into too many specifics, but it's centered around a couple things, right? From my perspective. And then I'll let Kim tell her perspective.
And this is just, she wanted an example.
Right. So,
and even when we brought this up, I didn't think this was gonna be an example.
yeah, because
that's how much you don't know when this is gonna, me anyways.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
it's funny because Kim thought what the example was going to be. She had wrote it in her journal that we both can see because we take notes during this.
I take notes.
And she traced over it 10 times. So it was thick 20 font, bold, highlighted on her journal page. I want to talk about this topic because this one I have issues around, right? And we should talk about it. We never got to that.
No, we never even got to that one
Yeah.
because the one he brought up ended up working.
So what happened was, from my perspective, okay, and we see this 3 different ways, but from my perspective, she was trying to lead us down this path, and I was like,
She, the counselor.
She, the counselor, was trying to lead us down this path. And during that point where she was leading us down this path, she had did something that Kim and I do, or that I do to Kim, that
she spoke to me.
triggers Kim.
Yeah.
So when I talk to Kim, and we say this all the time, I will say something and Kim will take it a certain way. And I was like, Kim, I wasn't saying that in a mean way. You know, why are you taking that as a diss or me being disrespectful or, you know, or anything? And she's like, well, how could you mean it? There's no positive spin to what you're saying. And then, so it'll take us 20 minutes and I'll be like, well, this is what I meant when I was saying this. And she's like, oh, okay.
But I get really upset at the beginning.
In the moment.
Because it just, I don't know what, that is like the weirdest, like some things just hit me.
Well, and Kim said, and I'll leave this more for her, but Kim said the two things that really trigger her in that moment, if someone thinks that I'm stupid.
Yeah, I don't like to feel stupid.
Or crazy. So if I'm saying something and I'm making Kim feel like...
Like you're making it seem like I don't understand.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by crazy.
Yeah, how could she not understand that? Or didn't you see that woman walking down the street? And didn't you see that car over there? You know, I mean, stuff like that. We're like, you know, I'm distracted. You know, I got a million things going on. You know, I got lesson plans to do from 5 to 7 at night, and I got to teach kids all day, and then I got to grade papers as soon as I get home, and then, you know, then you want me to make dinner? How do you, you know? I mean, so I get it, but it seems to me like she's on guard, right? So if I say something that could be perceived as critical, that's a trigger. For maybe some of the reasons, and I'll let her explain that.
Well, we're working on that.
Yeah. So today, the counselor was talking about that, you know, I'm a morning bird, she's a night owl, and how could we do something together so I could fulfill Kim's love bucket, if we could call it the love bucket, or just make her happy, you know, and stay out and enjoy each other's company and laugh and have a good time. And how could we fill Carlos's love bucket that, you know, hey, let's go to an early bird special and have a nice dinner, and, you know, maybe we could be home and in bed by 9 o'clock with something on the TV that we could watch together, right? You know, I mean, those are two extreme examples, but we were kind of using that a little bit. So the counselor says, you know, Kim, you know, if Carlos wants to leave early, you know, that should be okay, especially if you guys are talking about ahead of time. And we did say that we've had conversations, you know, ahead of time, most of the time when we go out, you know, hey, I don't want to stay too late, or, you know, or whatever.
We've learned, that's one of the things we've learned through our marriage, is to communicate about that. And
right.
It's not, you know,
it's not a big thing,
not
but
a
it's
big issue.
No, perfect.
You know, it's just, I feel like it would be nice, you know, if we could be, so we were just talking about that.
And I want to do those things, you know, and I do make, you know, I do go to some places that I do not feel entirely comfortable at, and I can have a good time, and sometimes I can lead conversations and, you know, and help spark the fun a little bit, you know, and sometimes it's a little in left field for me or not my area, and I kind of shelter in place.
But we communicate about that before we go,
and even during the night,
you know, ahead of time.
Yeah, and even during the night we can do that. But what happened in today's session was our counselor used the word when, you know, Carlos may want to go home early, you know, and I said, you know, hey, you know, and I looked over to Kim and I said, hey, you know, I kind of want to, sometimes I just want to go home early, and you know, and it's okay if you stay and have a good time, and you know, and Kim was kind of pushing back on that a little bit, you know, and the counselor said, well, Kim, that's a little controlling by you saying that Carlos really can't communicate, you know, that he doesn't want to be there. So it started with that, right? So I saw, and again, this is just from my perspective, I can tell when the water's starting to boil. Maybe it's not there yet, but I could tell. And it's usually we get pinched up, right?
So he saw me sit up.
So I saw her sit up and pinched up, and I was like, ooh, here we go. And it's not because of me, right? I was like, so, but she only pinched up, and I think she was willing to see where this
That's
line,
why I'm here.
Yeah,
I am willing to
see
to
where
go
this
through
line
it.
of question was going, right? So, and then she says, because we started talking about, you know, I'm not a an alcohol establishment type of person, so we were talking about nightclubs or restaurants with bars in them and just going to those places. And I says, those aren't my favorite. I says, I will go, So the counselor was like, hey, he doesn't necessarily, if he doesn't like to be at a bar, or anything like that. And Kim immediately, who was already perched up, was like, well, it's not a bar. It just happens to be a restaurant with a bar in it, And so now these two are starting to go a little bit back and forth, which I'm seeing in my eyes that this is what we do. This is how it starts with us. So I stupidly, mind you, I turn to the counselor and I say, you are doing, Kim is reacting to you exactly how she reacts to me.
You're experiencing
what I experience. And I said, and I was about to say, you're not being ill-intended, but
how it landed on
that's how it's landing on Kim. So I wanted to sit back and watch how these two work through it, because that's where we have difficulty.
Well, and that's what she intended to do. So the intention was bring up an issue that could spark that situation, which is something we deal with.
Yep.
And then for her to model how to work through it and get past it, so that eventually it doesn't even get to that point anymore. That's the whole purpose. But what happened was he laughed because, it was like it actually happened as intended. That's what she wanted to have happen. But since he saw her getting the reaction from me like he would normally get, he laughed, which made her laugh because she's just a friendly person. So made her laugh, but I got
when she laughed,
I was mad. I was done. I wouldn't look at them. I wasn't talking to anybody. I started to have tears were coming down my eye. I was like, they were laughing at me. I feel stupid. Like, oh my gosh. And it was almost close to the end of our session. So we're like, we're at a 10. Mm-hmm. We can't end like this.
And because the week before, we ended exactly like that.
It happened like that the week before. So at least thankfully this time Carlos said, hey, you can't leave us hanging like this. Like, you got to do something. And it took a good 10 minutes for me to come down, which thankfully, I mean, as fast as I get angry, I can usually get over it fast too. I mean, that's truthful, right?
Yeah.
So this one took me a little while.
But it was actually faster this time. Yeah.
So eventually, I came down, and unfortunately, she didn't get to model through the whole thing. We're like, we missed an opportunity.
But a few good things happened out of that. So one was, she got to see it, and that's what I was doing in the moment, was saying, this is a good example. This is exactly what happens to me. Now show me how to fix it, right? And when I said that, I was like smiling and chuckled. She chuckled back, and then that was Kim at a 10. So then we spent about 10 minutes apologizing to you and trying to dive into what your feelings were. And Kim's like, I don't have no feelings. I'm pissed at the both of you. You two aren't going to triangulate on me, and that was an issue with us before, because me and Carly, our youngest child, we would triangulate on Kim a little bit.
It feels like, and what that means is like two people ganging up on you, or like you feel like you're getting picked on, or you're out of the loop, or whatever that feeling could be.
Yep.
And not
Kim,
good.
And Kim, in a moment of, humbleness, I think she's like, look, if I'm the one to blame here, if I'm the one that's messed up, why don't you two quit, laughing at me and beating around the bush and doing these little examples? Tell me what I need to do, right? And God love you in that moment, because then
just say it.
I know that's when I put my hand on her leg. I was like, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring all this out. Even though she's still at a 10, I felt what she was feeling like. Look, if there's something I need to do in this moment, and she's not saying it as sweetly as I'm saying it right now, but I heard it that way. Tell me, because I don't want to do this dance. I want to get
Yeah.
to what the root is.
And that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It felt like those two knew a secret.
Yeah,
and that they
she
were
said
keeping
that.
it from me.
Yeah.
I'm like, just tell me.
Yeah,
what are you like? It felt like he was inferring what she was implying. Like they were both getting each other and the point, and I just
Yeah.
like,
And she's like, are you guys keeping a secret from me? Like, what is this? And I was like, and that's when I turned to her and I said, honey, I'm sorry. I'm not colluding against you, you know? And then the counselor said the exact same things. Like,
yeah,
look,
she felt bad.
Yeah.
She felt bad.
And then, so she felt bad. And then she says, you know, I'm not a marriage counselor. After, you know, the last 2 sessions had been high intensity, she goes, look, I'm not a marriage counselor, but my boss and a colleague of mine should, you know, I have you guys work with them on that, you know? And Kim's like, maybe so, you know, maybe it's like, you know, because again, she's probably at a 9 at this point. She's starting to come down, but it's still.
I was like, well, is there someone you could refer us to who is more of an expert in this area? And that's what she was offering. But, you know, I mean, kudos to her for doing that. But ultimately, we really do like her. We really do. And you even spoke up and share what you said.
Yeah.
Because he painted it the right way.
So I said, look, you know, that certainly could be a possibility, but we have been in sessions trying to describe what you have been able to actually extract out of us.
And she hasn't seen us that many times.
Right.
So to get to this point this fast was
and I
pretty good.
said, look, I says, you've seen the raw version of us. Because she even asked during the session, am I seeing the real you?
Yeah.
And I was saying, yes, this is really how we are. We're not putting on a front here to like look good in front of the counselor. We're here for help, right? And after the session, I go, see what I mean? You're seeing the real us. This is how we react to each other, and this is us, you know? And I said, you know, it may be good to have somebody new, but I think you've seen us in our rawest form. If there's any place we can go from this point is probably forward, right?
Yeah.
She is doing a lot of homework for us, which I truly appreciate. She's trying to give us tools to help us do that.
Yep.
And I think at that point, and I don't want to speak for you, but at that point, I think you were kind of like, I would like you to stay. And what were you thinking in that moment?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I wasn't 100% because I couldn't tell, like, is she nicely offering us an out because she also wants to be out?
Good point.
You know, that type of thing. But it didn't seem like that.
No.
It seemed like she was just genuinely giving us an out if we wanted. And so I just said, well, do you have someone you would refer? Because I kind of was like, well, maybe we do just need someone who, you know, could not, you know, I guess do more in a shorter amount of time because they're more practiced in it or whatever. But then after you spoke and shared that, I'm like, yeah, I feel that totally. And you know me, I will fire somebody or, you know, I've gone to other doctors a lot. So I'm not, if I wanted to, I would have just stuck to it.
Right.
But I didn't feel that way because I do really like her.
And so it was about the top of the hour. And I guess to kind of finish this episode, so how did we finish our session today? So it was the top of the hour, and I said, look, I go, we can't leave at a 10, you know, or even a 9, or at this point, Kim was probably down to 7-6, you know.
Yeah,
it was getting much better.
I was starting to calm down.
Yep, and we started hitting on some things. I go, but we can't leave because the last session, Kim and I talked for 2 hours after that one just to bring each other down, right?
Yeah.
I says, you got to help us kind of through this so we can communicate lovingly and not being, each of us being triggered. And she spent about another, 10 minutes. 10 minutes with us to do that. We set up our next appointment, and her last 2 sessions on a weekend, a Saturday, is at 2 and 3. And we said, well, we'll take the 2 o'clock spot. And I was like, well, can you make us last? And she's like, yes. I says, because I don't want to leave. I want to make sure that we leave because we're taking up the whole 55 minutes with
Oh, yeah.
the work, but I think we need just a little bit more time to make sure that we're not leaving those sessions triggered or high intensity. And I thought today started out okay. It got really intense, but where we ended, I felt pretty good. What did you think?
Yeah, same. I mean, I don't know if I can say the same. I want that closure.
Yes.
I want that. I didn't get that understanding part yet today. So, but also, this isn't my first time talking through this issue with a counselor. It's just, when you don't practice it, when you don't keep your awareness about things fresh in your mind, and always, you do have to practice the responses to maybe something landing on you the wrong way, and oh my gosh, my heart rate's going up, and so because you can start to maybe self-talk or tell yourself something. And I kind of got out of practice with that because we all know COVID got rid of all of our routines and all of that stuff.
Yep.
So, and also, like you said, just a lot of new things coming up in our life that just, when your routines and things get changed, it's hard to keep. So, yeah, I can probably do my own self-reflecting on that. But I'm looking forward to her leading us through it.
Yeah, and I think we have sessions with her every other week.
Yeah.
So we might do some of these real talks every other week. And just to,
we'll debrief here.
Yeah, see how things are going with this, because this is something we've struggled with for a long time that we're starting to get our hands around. And finally, somebody who's counseling us has seen it, has recognized it, has a plan for it. Let's see how this plan goes.
And what a better way to shed a light on the mental health care system than to kind of share a little bit about what it's like.
Yep.
So I think that would be a great plan.
Absolutely.
So we hope you will join us back for that, and we will see you then. Bye.
Bye.